Saints, I'm going to ask you a question. What voice is your pastor listening to? God's people have fell away from him, serving idols and distractions, things from this world. Now, when God's people fall away from him, he will put the false prophet into full power. This is sound doctrine. 1 Kings, verse 22, verses 19 through 23. When God's people fell away from him in the past, he put a lying spirit into full power. Now, if your pastor is teaching one of these three obvious false teachings, these false biblical teachings, then he's listening to the false prophet and the hundreds of lying spirits that's confusing the church today. If your pastor is saying that the Jewish people have to rebuild a third temple in Israel for the Antichrist to enter, that's a false biblical teaching. Ephesians 2, verses, I believe it's 18, it says that this is a spiritual temple. In the book of Zechariah 6:12, Jesus, the branch, he will build the temple. Jesus stood up in John, chapter John, he stood up in the book of John, he stood up and he said, my temple, tear down this temple, and in 3 days I will rebuild it. He's talking about the temple of his body. Paul says in the New Testament, he says that our temple is the Holy Spirit. It's where the Holy Spirit resides. Jesus, the branch, tore down that temple. Now, if your pastor is teaching that, it's a false biblical teaching. Now, if your pastor is teaching that the false prophet will be a human or he will be in the natural, that's a false biblical teaching. In 1 Kings, verses 22, 19 through 23, it says, let it be known that God has put a lying spirit in the mouth of thy prophets. This is the false prophet. So he's the false prophet from the book of Revelation is going to be a spirit. He's not going to be a physical person. And lastly, if your pastor is teaching the pre-trib self-righteous rapture doctrine, that's a false teaching. Jesus tells us if he was persecuted, so will we be. God tells us that he alone is the judge. We need to fear God. God decides when his people have fell away from him, serving idols and distractions. In 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 3, when God's people fall away from him, he will put the Antichrist into full power. Now listen to me. If your pastor is teaching these things, you tell him to read where I told you, Ephesians 2, or 1 Kings, verse 22, or read where Jesus says, if he was persecuted, so will we be. God always saves a righteous remnant while the rest of his people fall away from him, serving idols and distractions. This righteous remnant, they go around and they witness to others, telling them why these things happen. Why did God judge this way? God is shaking the nations. The false prophet and Antichrist are in full power today. God's next judgments are food shortages and worldwide war. This is found in Leviticus 26, verses 14 through 33. We're up to verse 26 right now. God's next judgments are food shortages and worldwide war. Hey, if you want to learn more, subscribe to this channel or follow this channel and hit that notification button. I will see you in the next video. If you want to hear from the Holy Spirit directly, that's what we teach on this channel, how to hear from God directly. This is James 1, 5 through 7, Jeremiah 29, verse 12 through 13. If you ask God anything concerning his word by faith, he will answer you instantly. Hey, I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel or follow this channel to learn more.